Hey everybody, welcome to Brickvault. This is another LEGO Top 10 Mocks of the Week episode. This is basically where I just check out the coolest mocks that I've seen people building throughout the week. And if you stick around to the end of the episode, you can see your creations that you guys have submitted. If you want to submit your own fan mock creation, there is a link to the proper email in the description below this video. And let's just jump right in. Coming in at number 10, this here is a fun little mock by Chris McVeigh. It's called the Carrot Mech. From a distance, I didn't realize it was a carrot. I knew it was something organic, but then you can see that really clever bit of building that shows the sort of leafy stalk that kind of goes underneath the bottom and kind of bends out the back under the mech. I sort of just like the simplicity and the fat kind of body, and the mech seems to have quite a lot of character considering it's a relatively simple build. It has shoes that are kind of like Sonic the Hedgehog, hands that I guess could be similar, maybe Sonic or Mickey Mouse or something, and then for no particularly discernible reason, there are some eyes at the bottom. There's just a lot of personality condensed down into this somewhat random kind of build, and I thought it was cool enough to definitely not pass up. Now let's move on to a rather large build. Number 9 is Theramore Castle by Mark of Falworth. Immediately I found this art style really recognizable. I never play World of Warcraft, but the build of the castle here is pretty distinct, and there's just something so fun about the stone wall being made with those 2x4 tile pieces. That kind of 3D brick dimensional detailing on the outside is usually done with 1x2s, and with the larger tiles here, it just sort of gives off a fun and kind of cartoony effect. You can see the castle is also built on just a bunch of regular green base plates, which kind of adds to the build style that makes it feel a little bit cartoony or sort of overly simplified, if I can say that. And at the end of the day, I would consider this a really successful adaptation of the original castle. Now this number 8 mock is also considered an adaptation of sorts. If you don't immediately recognize this red bunny tank as something familiar, it is the Duplo logo. The original builder DVD had a really funny adaptation. The tank itself actually looks pretty legit. I like the tread detailing. There's a lot of weapons that seem to be sort of scattered about all over the body, including a fun little rocket pack on the back. And this being the Duplo logo, after all, it does have the ability to fit a Duplo bunny on the inside to actually pilot the tank from the inside. All things considered, this is just somewhat of a silly build, but it still showcases a lot of skill and creativity for sure. Now number 7 is a really cool mock. I absolutely love the colors here. It is by Cesar Soares, and the title is Just Like a Doll's House, but really what we're looking at is Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs cottage. And based on the description of the builder, this looks like the cottage from Thomas Kincaid's depiction. Now there's a few building choices here that really make this thing feel unique. I would say initially right off the bat, I like the sort of nougaty look for the colored path, and the grass goes through so many tone shifts with the sort of lighter lime green color, which I'm normally not a fan of, but it fits in so well with this kind of different shades of green, and it makes the entire sort of area brighten up in the center. I'm a big fan of builders finding new and creative ways to create thatched roofs, and here it looks like they're made entirely of tiny yellow tooth pieces. Also, we have some pretty fun creative designs for some flowers that are hanging out by the riverbed, and in general this whole area just feels really sort of majestic and also, yeah, very cartoony. Now moving on to number 6, I'm always a fan of sci-fi flyers. This is called the Dragonfly Vic Viper by Andreas Lenander. Now if I had to guess as to why it was called the Dragonfly, I think the wing, or like the wing type pieces that hang off the back of the ship, look somewhat built like in a formation of dragonfly wings with some bigger ones on top and some smaller ones on the bottom. But that's kind of a stretch. In reality, this just looks like a really fun ship. The build for the thruster in the back is very cool. The underside of the Viper has some interesting sort of details, but the two arms that stick out in the front that kind of have these opening points where you can see some pipes and sort of mechanical detailings in the midway point, that part really does look the coolest for me. And in general, it's just one of the more fun sci-fi builds that I've seen this week. Now let's move on to a very prominent builder that we've featured several times before in the past. LEGO 7 has this really fun build called Christmas Dreams, and you can see that it's Santa Claus, but he happens to have changed up his sleigh. I'm not good when it comes to sports cars. I don't really know if this is a particular type of sports car or if it's just something that looks fast and fun to drive. There's a lot of details to notice, like Rudolph sitting in the front seat. We've got some elves that are on the front. I'm not sure if he's hitting a bunch of presents or if they're just sitting on the car. It does kind of feel like it's a build that's somewhat stopped in motion, because we've got a polar bear and you can see the sort of scarf waving in the back wind, and also Santa's beard is flowing behind him. So perhaps he is actually hitting a bunch of presents in his pathway. But anyways, it's just a really fun scene, and that is a very creative way to create a Christmas tree using all those bush pieces. We're guaranteed to get more Lego Christmas builds throughout this holiday season, but this is the coolest one I've seen so far. And anyways, let's move down to number 4. I don't know how to pronounce sort of the name of this place. It's Jernstein, I think, and the builder is Wochenender. I don't believe this build is based on a real place, but you could have totally fooled me. It really does look like a complete world that we have here. This is a somewhat frozen forest land that we have some colonizers or some people sort of setting up camp in what looks like probably a pretty rough bit of terrain. I like the build that makes up the water. When you go north, you can also see bits of ice breaking into the water, and there's a little penguin standing there. And what's especially nice is all the different little bits of plate layering with the fun sort of subtle colors that make up the ground. The light tan that makes up the dirt was a good choice. It definitely contrasts well with the dock, but probably my favorite aspect of this mock is how the builder put together the snow-covered pine trees. Now let's jump into the top 3. This is such a fun build. This is FE47 Rapier by John Hall. I'm a big fan of this sort of old school sort of design for a plane, and this is built up in a way that just kind of feels cartoony and sort of obtuse, and there's just a lot of really big sort of extravagant details here, especially, you know, you can see the cannon in the front. That's awesome. The shape of this ship kind of looks like an old World War II fighter or something, but we do have a similar cockpit style of maybe like a B-52 bomber with sort of that front window as well as the top piloting window. The giant propeller engines on the sides of the wings are just a little bit overdone, and I think probably one of my favorite aspects of the entire build is the checkerboarded tail. I think if you look close, those are made of just a lot of different 1x1s kind of put together in some fun, clever ways. And it's great how the whole tail actually is rounded out like that, but still manages to maintain the black and yellow checkered colored look. This is a really, really fun build. It's got a lot of style. And now we're moving on to what might be the biggest, at least the biggest Hoth build I have seen. I've seen one other that's really, really large like this. It's a massive Hoth diorama done in Lego. I bet it's probably a conglomerate group of builders that came together to create this, but on the Flickr account, it is by Winter is Hoth. And there's a few things that I noticed here right off the bat that are pretty fun for us to see here. The AT-ATs, I believe, are the same design as Cave God's AT-AT, or the same one that we have built up in our own studio. And the Falcon on the inside of Echo Base looks like the latest version of the Ultimate Collector Series Falcon that just came out. Something a little different in this Hothscape that I think was a really good idea on the builder's part was to create the top opening of the Echo Base just kind of totally open so you could see the entire interior, and it makes this build just a little bit more interesting, or a lot more interesting, just because you can see so much more detail on the inside of the base, and you still have a full-blown battle on the outside as well. Now, I've also seen this before on Hoth builds, but I gotta say it is always a good design choice to make those snowspeeders built in dark gray so they contrast a lot more with the white backdrop. And anyways, there's just a lot to check out in this build. I have no idea how many parts this thing is made of, but it is one epic Hoth diorama. Now, this next build is UTH-123 by Sunder59, or it's basically a sort of a conglomerate set of builds that I really like here. And this is just an awesome sort of bit on a sort of modern, maybe sci-fi-esque looking train. And here we have some just really fun sort of sci-fi, or definitely modern interpretations of some kind of just interesting designs for train cars. Not only do the cars themselves look just very unique and really sleek, but the builder also created their own version of train tracks if you look even closer. I like that the train is set up with sort of the electronic connection at the top, and you can also see a lot of fun sort of control panels on different cars that who knows what they're for, but this definitely has kind of a fun sort of modern sci-fi twist on train cars, which is just something I haven't seen maybe ever, or at least in a super long time for a Lego build. Anyways, that is it for my top 10 mocks of the week episode. Now it is the fan mock creations, your creations that you guys submitted all throughout last week. Remember, if you want to have your creations appear in next Sunday's episode, you can email us pictures in the description below. It is brickvaultfanmocks@gmail.com. And anyways, thanks a lot for watching. Here are the fan mocks.